The Solana network has $5 billion in TVL right now, and it's currently the third largest decentralized finance network, and it's also pretty active, more active than the Ethereum network at least. There are roughly 315,000 active addresses just in the past 24 hours on the Ethereum network. Solana, being ranked number 3 with a much lower TVL at $5 billion instead of $48 billion, has 3 million active addresses. That's a lot of people transacting over on the Solana network. Now, why might they want to transact over on the Solana network? Well, it's simply because Solana is so cheap. The gas fees over on Solana are super cheap. If I execute a transaction on Solana, it goes through like that. It's instant, basically. So there's a huge user experience upgrade for people that are using the Solana network. Today, I'm going to be talking about how you can earn passive income on the Solana network using platforms like Raydium, as well as Orca, and a couple of the other ones that I have up my sleeve. Anyways, before we dive in, if you guys enjoy transparent content, us just showcasing what we're considering deploying our capital into, some of these positions we already have our capital in, make sure to drop a like and subscribe when notifications turned on. Let me know what you want me to cover next down below in the comment section. Anyways, the first thing that we're going to do is head over to DeFi Llama, and we are going to search for the Solana network. And remember, I always like to show you my thought process when looking for these different positions, and I'm kind of going about this for the first time as well, at least looking for positions today. Now, off the bat, you're going to notice that we have some high TVL projects, stuff like Kamino Lind, which is a pretty large protocol. There is Save. There's obviously a lot of Orca in here. This is concentrated liquidity pools over on Orca, and there's also some stuff that we can provide liquidity for over on Allbridge and get like absolutely nothing on USDC if we want to. Now, since Kamino was the first platform we came across, I want to talk a little bit about Kamino. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. They have a couple different sectors of their platform. Number one is their Borrow Lind, otherwise known as a money market, where essentially you can supply like different cryptocurrency assets, one of them being USDC, and then you can go and borrow against those different cryptocurrency assets. Why might somebody want to do this? Because to a lot of you, this might not make sense, and this is just kind of one of the beginner things that you'll learn. Well, what if you could keep exposure to, let's just say, Solana token, and then borrow USDC at a very low loan to value rate, so you're doing a safe borrow, or you could just take that USDC, go and throw it into CDs, treasury bills, or better yet, DeFi positions for stablecoins yielding roughly 20-30%. Or what if you want to leverage up and convert that USDC to more Solana to get yourself more exposure and leverage? These are all beginner strategies that you guys might not know, but that's something that we can do over on Kamino Finance. By deploying our capital into the lending section, we are providing liquidity as a service, because liquidity as a service is where we are providing our capital, and in return, we are getting paid for providing our capital as a service, basically. So in this instance, it's the borrowers that are paying us. We are providing a service to the borrowers. Now, there's also a liquidity section over on Kamino Finance, and this is where they manage your liquidity pool for you. So as you can see, some of these APYs are decent, other ones are pretty solid, but what I really want to pay attention to is something like Drift to Sol, basically. This is using the Orca platform, but by deploying it into Kamino, it's automatically going to rebalance your position for you. So currently the fixed range is 0.0009 to 0.0079. So it's a pretty broad range, but doing about 85% APY over the past 7 days, that's not too bad. And these fees are automatically compounded back into the position. So these are just some of the opportunities that we can find over on Kamino Finance. The next one that I want to take a look at is Raydium, because this is the largest decentralized exchange over on the Solana network. They have a lot of different pools. They have two different types though, concentrated as well as standard. Now we're going to dive into those in just a second, but I want to put something out there. If you guys have never heard of concentrated liquidity pools or standard liquidity pools, or maybe you have heard of them and you've deployed in them before, but you really don't have the resources you need and the community you need to actually succeed in this industry, so maybe you can go and quit your job, or maybe you can have some supplemental income so that way you can pay your bills off faster. That's exactly where my DeFi Excel community comes into play. This is brand new, this has never been discussed before, and we already have users in it. The goal is to stop hodling your cryptocurrency assets and letting them inflate in price, because cryptocurrency assets inflate too, but actually start deploying your capital into DeFi liquidity as a service opportunities. We're going to teach you everything from actually setting up your wallet and getting you onboarded into DeFi to the more advanced concentrated liquidity strategies that we can use, as well as you're going to have access to our Excel community where you can bounce ideas off of us, our team, as well as other members in the group. You can share your wins, you can share your losses, your positions in general, so that way other people can provide you feedback. Same exact thing goes for support. If you guys have questions like what's the best bridge and you don't know what to do, that's all going to take place in our Excel community, and you will get answers to the questions that you have. And if that wasn't good enough, we do multiple multiple masterclasses per month where we essentially cover the best opportunities in the DeFi space, as well as new concepts that have arose. Now, all of this is available for $50 now and then $25 per month as a cost of being a part of this community. But not only that, you're going to get 30 days of Metrics Pro for free so you can try it out and have the best tools and resources at your disposal when first getting started. That's valued at $40 per month. And if you stay tuned throughout the video, you're going to learn more about Metrics Pro. And lastly, I want to go ahead and mention there is a $50 initiation fee, and then it renews at $25 per month. But if you use code initiation, you will get that initiation fee waived. So it's just $25 per month. But to dive back into Raydium liquidity pools, the concentrated liquidity pools, those are the ones where you can adjust your range and you can choose what prices you want to provide liquidity across. Whereas the standard liquidity pools, those ones are full range, and typically there are going to be more meme coins over here. As you can see, we have stuff like Mu to Sol, or Sol to Mu Ding, or Sol Gun to Sol, Sol to Misha, and all these other different pools. And if you look at some of these pools, they got like 10k of liquidity, but they have $8 million in volume. That's exactly what you're going to see over in the standard pools. Now, I personally don't really like to provide liquidity for standard pools. I like to do concentrated liquidity because I can do more blue chip assets as opposed to having to look for assets that are meme coins that are probably going to decline 99% in value. But we have opportunities like Sol to Jupe Sol. This is literally pairing Sol with Sol because Jupe Sol is a derivative of Sol, and it's showcasing roughly a 70% APR. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk about Metrics Finance a little bit. This is a tool where we can back test that APR to make sure that it's actually legit and it's going to hold up to that APR. So we will select Raydium over on the simulate page of Metrics Finance. From here, we're going to type in Sol, and then we are going to select Jupe Sol basically, because these are the two assets that Raydium is showcasing over here, and it's doing about a 70% APR. Now, once we select the fee tier, which in this instance is 0.01%, and over here it is 0.01% as well. And the first thing I notice about this pool is the volume is not consistent whatsoever. There's just these big spikes of volume and then it completely dies out. So this is not something I would want to deploy into. So rather than using Raydium to browse through these concentrated liquidity pools, same exact thing goes for Orca. Orca's a lot better, and in my opinion, they have one of the best interfaces for finding concentrated liquidity pools on their platform in specific. We're gonna go over to Metrics Finance Discover, select Orca and Raydium on the Solana network. And this is gonna show us both Orca and Raydium pools aggregated on a dashboard, just like we could see them aggregated over on the DeFi Llama dashboard. The difference, this is for concentrated liquidity in specific. Now I have a couple different filters that I use, and keep in mind these filters are a part of the Metrics Pro plan, so you do have to have Metrics Pro in order to use these filters. Fees APR that's higher than 10%, lower than 1,000%. Why do I do lower than 1,000%? Well, that's because no blue chip assets are paying out 1,000%. No semi blue chip or even altcoins that are not high risk are paying out over 1,000%. It is typically the meme coins 90% of the time. So I do lower than 1,000%. Keep in mind, even if this shows 49% APR, we could get less, we could get more depending on what our range actually is. The next thing that I do, the TVL, I want to do higher than $250,000. The reason why is because once again, I don't want to be exit liquidity. And naturally, I would do $1 million over on the Ethereum network on Uniswap or something like that. But there are not billions of dollars in Orca and Raydium compared to the billions of dollars there are in Uniswap, which is why I use $250,000. I have to be more lenient here because this is a less liquid decentralized exchange. And the next thing I do, I look at the 24-hour fee to TVL ratio. This essentially takes the average daily fees across the past 30 days. And if we want to look across the past 14 on average, we can, and that's what I'm going to do. But it takes that and it divides it by the overall TVL to show us a ratio on how many fees are being collected compared to the TVL of this pool. What I personally like to do is look at how many pools we have. We have 94. I don't want to sort through 94. I'd probably want to sort through like 40. So I'll sort by the highest fee to TVL ratio. The highest one is 0.81%. And then I will scroll down to page 5, which is literally halfway through, find the one right in the middle. That's 0.06%. So we're going to filter this to be above 0.06%. So now we only have to look at 45 different pools. And if we wanted to, we can browse through different assets. If we look at ones that are specifically paired with Sol token, or we can look at ones that maybe include Sol at the bare minimum, or if we want to look at, say, Pyth or Render, we can type in these tokens and be able to see those as well. But I'm just going to start scrolling through these 45 different pools because I'm in an asset discovery mode. I don't just want to deploy liquidity in assets that I already have. I want to deploy it into assets that maybe are new assets that have a lot of growth potential, that have trading volume, that have utility as well. Those are the types of assets I want to be in. And in my opinion, stuff like Michi and Popcat, that's obviously not that. That doesn't have high utility. It's more community driven and meme driven. So you're betting on the fact that the community isn't going to dump or something like that. So I see stuff like Zeus to Sol, at least on page 1. When we go over to page 2, we'll start to get a couple more opportunities that look a little bit better. See Sol to USDC over on Raydium. I'm personally in a Sol to USDC pool over on Orca. I see Jito Sol to Drift. This seems really good. HNT to Sol is doing about a 48% APR, and we can zone in on that range as well. And I also see stuff like like ISC to INF. Now, I have personally never heard of either of these assets, but I'm in a discovery mode, so I'm going to head over to CoinGecko and just type these assets in over on CoinGecko. I see international stable currency. It looks like this is supposed to be some type of stable coin that only grows in value. Pretty interesting concept. I mean, it's worked since basically October of 2023. Obviously, we'd want to do more due diligence on it to make sure that it's going to continue to work and that this is not artificial, but rather actually collateralized. But then we compare that ISC with something called INF. Now, INF is something called Sanctum Infinity. I have personally not heard of this before, so I'd pull up the website and I could do some due diligence on it to see what it actually is. It's an infinite LST future. It helps launch millions of new LSTs only on Solana network. What does that mean? Those are liquid staking tokens, basically. So stuff like, say, Jito Sol is going to be a liquid staking token, or ImSol going to be a liquid staking token. They're going to help launch millions of these. Pretty interesting concept. I personally don't know why there would need to be millions of these launched, but hey, to each their own. If this platform actually has utility, and if there's a reason to hold INF token, this could be a pretty solid pool to deploy into. So I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this one as well. I also see stuff like Raydium Sol. That's definitely something I want to include in my portfolio, and Sol to Kamino. So now that we've bookmarked a bunch of these different pools, we can start to simulate the results. So I'm going to pick out a handful of them and just kind of walk you guys through my process of doing liquidity as a service and actually getting paid for my liquidity as a service endeavors. So as far as my deposit amount, typically doing about $10,000. So I'm going to type in $10,000 just off the bat, get that out of the way. Keep in mind, simulating on Metrics Finance is pretty much free because this is our flagship product. The only two things that will be covered up are the correlation and the geometric mean, but those things are more advanced and not really important, at least in the moment, because we can see it through the chart as well. So the chart's trending downwards. That means that it's taking less Kamino to equal 1 Sol, which tells me that Kamino is outperforming Sol. So when we adjust this range, we're gonna wanna make sure that we have a lot of downside exposure, which sounds bad, but it's actually not, because that means that we are giving Kamino more room to perform. As you can see, we're weighting more towards Kamino now. We have 63% Kamino in the pool. Now, I always look at the volume. This volume is somewhat consistent, but it's dropped down over the past basically week or so. So I'm going to use a 1 week calculation range. That means when it's calculating this APR, it's only using 1 week worth of volume as opposed to 30 days. And as you can see, that's a 103% APR, which is more realistic. We'll save this to the portfolio. And guys, saving to the portfolio, that essentially puts it in the build section. And once we have multiple positions here, we can collectively see how our entire portfolio is going to perform. I'm going to do the same exact process for the Jito Sol to Drift pool. Once again, looking at this volume history, it's not consistent whatsoever, but if anything, it's in our favor because volume has picked up the past 2 weeks or so. Now, as far as the range goes, I'm going to go ahead and select a range. It's about 50-50, and the reason why is because we're seeing a little bit of a retracement right now. So if we do something like 290 basically on our top price, and then over here on our bottom price, we do about 180. That'll get us about 58% drift. Not too bad. And then from there, we can go ahead and look at the APR. It's about 146%, and we can say, okay, how much volume do we want to use? We probably want to use about 4 days. So using 4 days of volume, about 198%. So if anything, it's higher. So let's go ahead and save that one to our portfolio as well. Pretty solid stuff. Now, right now, Sol's doing a lot better than H&T, but if this were to turn around like it has been over the past 90 days over here, then we'd want to make sure that we have exposure. So I'm going to go ahead and set roughly 50-50 in terms of how much H&T versus Sol I have. And then my calculation range, I'm going to select that at 7 days, and that volume's way more consistent, which means we're doing about a 45% APR here. Once again, that's a more blue chip pair for the Solana network. H&T has been around for a very long time, so we'll just go ahead and save those to the portfolio. Now, I'm not going to dive into doing all of these positions right now because unfortunately I do have limited time on this YouTube video, but what I will be doing is going through the rest of these positions and posting an exclusive video in the community research section of my DeFi Excel program, so you'll be able to see all the ranges that I choose as well as the portfolio that I build out strictly on the Solana network and what type of APR it's going to do. And just a little hint, off of these three that I selected, $30,000 allocation is estimated to do about $100 per day. That's over a 110% APR. And the last thing I want to mention about my DeFi Excel program is on Monday, which is just 4 days from the time of posting this video, we will be hosting our first masterclass seminar where we dive into liquidity as a service. And essentially, instead of doing what we just did, we're going to do that for literally an hour to 2 hours and really dive into the woods on what liquidity as a service is and how you can earn passive income from it and potentially change your financial future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like, subscribe, notifications turned on, and peace out.